Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Crisis, Currency, and Conversations. Thank you for joining us this Friday. You guys are in for a treat before we kick off this Memorial Day weekend. I want to be honest with you all. I'm struggling today. I don't know what's going on, if it's sinuses or what have you, but the devil is a liar. I am here with you all, and I am serving you today. If you have joined in for the first time, welcome. If you've joined for some of our other episodes, welcome back. We are excited to see you. We have some amazing guests. If you've been following me on YouTube, you can subscribe to the channel so that you can get more episodes. It's at Larvetta L. Lofton, and hope that you will subscribe, and you will get to know kind of what we've been doing over this course of the crisis. The important part is that we are making sure that we are driving currency in this crisis. Before I start every segment, I just kind of share what brings me joy. And it's been tough, right? This is episode 6, and I'm going to feature a product that has given me joy, and it is a candle. And so what I've been doing every week is supporting a Black business online and purchasing from them. So this is a candle that is called the Harlem Candle Company. And when I tell you it's called, the one that I have is Lenox. So it's white, and it comes in this amazing package. And it just says joy, light, life. And it has an amazing poem, and her products are all about Harlem Renaissance. And so please check her out. She is actually one of my sisters that went with me to Tuck. So please check her out. It's amazing. It's given me joy this week. And so just remind yourself that it's important that you find what makes you joy. And so for me, it was about making sure that I can support Black business owners. And so that's what gives me joy as I serve. So please check them out, Harlem Candle Company. And I promise you won't be disappointed. The thing that I want to talk to you all today is about, me, Larvetta Lofton. I run the L3 agency. We are a full service marketing company. And the thing that I have had to learn as a 20-year entrepreneur is about my faith. And so I'm not able to do what I do without God, without Christ. And so one thing we have to know, that there is no such thing as a crisis without Christ. And so while we're in this crisis, we have to understand that Christ is in the midst of it. And we need spiritual guidance. And these two dynamic preachers, speakers, authors really are helping to shape that story and make sure that God's word is within us when we're doing our businesses. So I am truly excited that they are here with me this Friday, and that they're going to spend an hour so that we can really talk about how amazing God is. But we want to really get down to that inner and really know what's going on. So I am pleased to introduce, which I just found is my soror. And I'm excited to bring her because she is my soror, and she's a Delta. So for those that don't know, we are part of one of the most amazing sororities in the country, right, Jocelyn? Would you agree? Right. And so I got my sister in the studio with us today. So I am truly blessed to have you this afternoon for another episode of Crisis Currency Conversation. So thank you, Jocelyn. And so then I find out that, my pastor, my beloved pastor, and spiritual leader, and he's just an all-around great man of God. His wife is a Delta. So we're going to bring him on because he's going to give us some love because his wife is a Delta. So he's got Deltas all around him.
I'm surrounded with Deltas.
I know. And we know your daughter, I know she going to,
Legacy,
she gonna be a Delta, for real. We know that, right?
That's the plan, right?
That's the plan. Well, one thing's for sure, us Delta women, we love to serve. So that is why we get to do what we do. And we're going to talk about service. But before we really get down to the nitty gritty, I really want to give people some context of who you are and how long you've been serving the Lord in the work that you do. I know for you, Pastor Mo, you've been doing work both in Chicago and in Michigan. So definitely want to ask you, how long have you been serving?
So I've been in ministry full time for 27 years now.
Wow. So you started at like what, 12?
Right. I started at 19. I gave, right, fresh out of high school. I went to my pastor trying to get a job at church just so I could transition and go into music and move to the ATL. And he offered me a job as a janitor at that moment. I think I was a janitor for about three months into it, and we were at a staff meeting one morning, and he just said that the Lord impressed upon him that I was not the janitor, that I was a youth pastor, and would I want to work with young people? And I actually was like, yeah, I'm young myself, and if we could get young people into the kingdom of God, that'll be great. And so I began to be trained with him parallel. He was finishing up his master's at that time in seminary. And part of the deal was I had to shadow him, and he'd come from class and teach me, and we'll prepare our messages together and then teach the congregation. And so I've been since 19 years old, 27 years in January.
Wow.
Been full-time in ministry pretty much. I mean, I've had other jobs outside and around it, but they all supported ministry. Never left building nor advancing the kingdom of God. So
nice.
Yeah, that's it.
Nice. That's awesome. 27 years. Ooh, that's awesome. What about you, Jocelyn?
Well, first, I want to say thank you, Soror, for having me on the show. I love what you're doing. And I love how you are unapologetic about your faith. So thank you for that. But in terms of ministry, it's about 13 years. I actually started, I was very involved in my church at St. Sabina, and I'm still a member there. And I was working so hard in ministry that they said, you know what, we need to offer you a position. And so I started working at St. Sabina with our community center while also serving at the church. And I served there for 11 years, 8 of which I was the executive director of our youth center.
Okay.
And recently left there about a year ago now to venture out to form my own ministry called Faith on the Journey, which focuses on helping people to heal from the past and to move forward. A lot of people I noticed in my work at the Ark and in ministry felt stuck. They had a lot of unresolved trauma, and I didn't want people to stay there. So I knew I needed to find a way to empower people, to connect them with resources and help them navigate the process of healing by the power of God, but also connecting mental health principles in the mix of it. I have a background in social work. I have my master's in social work, and I also just graduated from McCormick Theological Seminary. And so my approach, thank you, Pastor Jermone. My approach is to merge both the social work and the theological work together to help people to heal. So yeah, that's my background.
That's awesome. That's incredible work. And I asked this question and I want to ask it because I think people get this confused. Leading God's people, is that a business? Some people don't see that. And I want to ask that question because we're talking to business owners, and I think there's blurred lines there. So I want to, kind of, as they say, get the elephant out the room, if you will, and really ask that question. Is leading God's people, is that a business?
Ladies first.
Okay, so I say yes, because I appreciate even the example that Pastor Jermone said earlier about he was working as a janitor before he ended up being in his current position. And I feel like in everything you do, you can serve God. You could be a lawyer doing this work. You can be having a marketing company. You can do whatever. And still, if you have that right mindset and connection, you can look at it. This is my current assignment from God. And I'm still using this as an opportunity to minister and be a light in dark places.
Nice.
So, absolutely. And you don't have to be in full-time ministry in the way that most people think of to be serving God as part of your business.
Thank you.
I agree 100%. Jesus said, I must be about my Father's business. That is, quote unquote, his statement. He said, I must be about my Father's business. And so advancing the kingdom of God The kingdom of God, as we know it in the earth, is an extension of a family business. It's God's government, his reign, his rule in the earth in partnership with human beings, individuals, as she said, working in different spheres and sectors of society. Church just happens to be one of those entities that bring everything together, the called out ones, but yet it mobilizes or trains people in every discipline to be deployed in particular areas of life, so that conscious driven people that are kingdom citizens are in places of power to be able to then influence and bring the world back to God. And so I don't think it's one method or one way. So absolutely, church and all things kingdom is a business.
And I'm glad that, you guys kind of open that up, because people don't see it as such. They don't see church as that. They see church as, an operation on Sundays. That's what they see. They don't see that it is an operation, that is a 7, which is, for some is 7 days, some is 6 days, some, is 4 days, whatever your operation is. And so given the fact that we know that church is a business, I'm talking to business owners. We know that we're in this crisis. We know that Magic Johnson, Mark Cuban, there's a number of people that own businesses, that are public figures, that are granting support. They're providing grants. They are advocating for minorities. They are ensuring that we are not left behind as a result of this crisis. And so given the fact that church is a business, I do want to ask this question specifically for both of you, because you both work, in church, knowing that Black churches are major buyers of goods and services, in marginalized communities a lot of times. So they are typically, in some communities, might be the largest employer in some communities. And so how can mega churches serve the minority small business community? Because we talking about it, and the reason why I really want to, dive a little bit on it is because when there is crisis, they call the church. So
Right.
When I look at the elected officials, they call the church. They're like, can we get some faith leaders here to talk about this? So so it's like this thing where it's like they recognize it, but, as a people, how is church being able to help these minority and stand up for this? I know that they're helping as it relates to people that are suffering from jobs and food and that, but at the same time, minorities are being suffered greatly because their businesses are suffering. So I do want to ask that to you, Pastor Jermone.
Well, I think that is primarily the church's responsibility, first and foremost, to train and help people to own their identity, their God-given purpose, harvest, finance, resource, whatever skill set that is in every person's household, right? And that they should benefit from that particular place. And I think in addition to that, I think also that then the church, if we use it, we should own it. You know what I mean? If we use it, utilize it, we should own it. And own it does not necessarily mean that the organization needs to own it, but that if the business has been seen as a credible business, a viable business inside of the church community, and those congregants should be able to know who they are, patronize it, and look internally first, so that dollar can pass throughout our own congregation and keep it within us. So when I'm looking for a plumber, before I look for an external plumber, I need to find a plumber in my community, in my congregation. If I'm looking for some lawn work to be done, if I'm looking for a hairstylist, if I'm looking for a lawyer or a doctor, I should first be able to find that in my particular community of faith. And the quality of that work should not diminish because they're in my community of faith. And neither should I always be looking for a hookup because I'm in that community of faith. Because if I'm going to pay somebody externally to be able to the same amount of money, then I should be able to pay the people that is inside of this particular setting the same amount of money, so that we can all prosper and take care of each other, and that dollar should continue to evolve and rotate among ourselves, and everybody benefits from there. At New Life right now, currently, we're not only serving our community, but we're using our business owners inside to, when we're feeding at the hospitals, we're using our business owners to feed the people at the hospital. So that dollar goes a little bit further when you are supporting, serving, training, developing, supporting, serving. Everybody's prospering in the middle of a pandemic. And so I think that is one of the keys that's necessary for the church to understand that Jesus dealt with spiritual issues, but before he ministered anybody spiritually, he handled them in a social setting and a secular setting also, to make sure that they were good.
And I'm so glad that you talked about the hookup, because, we feel that we have to, oh, that's my, oh, we go to church together. I'm not going to get this hookup, and so understanding that we need to really crush that, like literally, like that's out of this crisis, like we need to eliminate the hookup. We really,
if I would pay somebody else full price, I should pay my brother or my sister full price. That's
exactly.
Right. The only time that I always say is that I should not pay you to practice on me. So if you're still practicing, then we should be able to negotiate. But if you have a viable, if you're practicing to the limit, and all exchange isn't financial exchange. Sometimes it's bartering. Sometimes it's platforms. Sometimes it's skill sharing. So I think these are other ways that we can find the discounts. But if you're a professional, I should respect you as a professional, engage you as a professional, and pay you professionally, because you are providing a professional service.
Absolutely.
And so if that is the case, then that's how it should be handled, and we should stop looking for a hookup all the time.
Yeah, we really should. Jocelyn, do you have comments around that as well?
Yeah, I was over here ready to say hallelujah when you said that. It is really rough. People always expect that and then get mad when you say no. And it's like, wait a minute. But so I 100% agree with that. The only thing I would add or ditto is the fact that, like, it could be convenient for us to shop at the Starbucks or to shop at some of these chain restaurants. But if we're thinking about these small businesses, if we can just shift our mindset to say, you know what, I might have to drive a little bit further, pay a little bit more, but keeping these small businesses alive is really important. That's our responsibility to pour back into them, because these big chains, I see a line down the street for Starbucks, they don't seem to be hurting right now, and they're the ones who are able to get all these grant dollars because they got the lawyers who know all the loopholes, right? So figuring out ways to say, let's support the little guy during this time is important.
Yeah.
Second thing I would say is, I also think it's the church's responsibility to keep their hands to the pulse, to listen to the needs of the community, especially if the church has a seat at the table with the politicians and the decision makers. They can influence policy and advocate for additional resources. They might know, hey, what you all are doing right now, you think might be working, but it's really not getting to the people that it needs to get to. So let's talk about it. So the church needs to really be listening to what the people in the community are needing, especially Black business owners or just any small business owners, so they can advocate for them on their behalf.
And I thank you for saying that, because it is important. Having a business, and we do influencer marketing, we say that it's not, influencers should not be person, it can be an organization.
That's right.
So churches serve as influencers for, they are that. And so I have to, because they're looking for one person, it really takes a tribe and a community to be able to do that. So thank you for reminding us that. So I want to say, we're in this crisis. And so where do you all see trend? I mean, what are the trends as a result of this crisis? I certainly know that I see it. And I'm going to share that, in our communities, there's a digital divide, right? People don't know how to get online. People aren't even business owners. We're speaking of minority businesses, didn't even have websites. Many of them don't have websites. And so now that we have been quarantined and we have to have stay shelter in place, we have somewhat put ourselves in a very, I think, tough situation, because we did not access those tools, prior to COVID-19. And so this digital divide, to me, made it very clear that most churches, and I'm sure you say, didn't necessarily had video. They didn't have a platform. They weren't thinking that they could ever do this. And so I do want to talk about the trends as it relates to utilizing digital, especially for Black communities, and making sure that we don't allow fear to rob us of what is to come. So I would love for you all to talk about this digital divide as it relates to the faith community.
Yeah, it's so real, and I'm glad you brought that up. I was even thinking about that, like with the school system, right? The kids are needing to work from home, and a lot of them want to rely on online learning. But if they don't know how to use the iPad, they can't get an iPad. They don't have the tools. They don't have proper internet. It's just a number of different things, and I do see how those schools who were at that place where they had all this technology, they could easily shift and pivot, where it was not that easy for certain communities where they don't have as many resources. So I think from an educational standpoint, we're going to see a lot of differences. Obviously, not just with the digital divide, but one of the major trends that I've witnessed is health, how disproportionately the COVID-19 has definitely affected the Black community to the point where it is exposing many of the other disparities that exist, not having proper healthcare or resources. And so to your point, we're seeing how bad the divide is. You know, I heard someone say that when a affluent community is attacked by a crisis, it's kind of like them catching a cold. But when an underprivileged community is attacked by a crisis like this, they get the flu. And so the effects are that much more severe for us. And it's going to separate things to the point where after COVID-19, I don't know what the new normal is going to look like. The divide is going to be so huge that it's going to be very difficult for those who are already behind to catch up if we're not intentional about fighting for what is needed to bring equity to those areas in the community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. So good. Yeah, I agree with everything she said. I think the most unfortunate part of this divide is about preparation. I think people underestimate the power of preparation. And so now that you are in the middle of a crisis, you can't prepare in a crisis. You know, you have to try to prepare for a crisis. And then when people get into a crisis that they realize they weren't prepared for because they didn't manage preparation, the next thing they do is panic. So then when you're panicking, you're really reacting instead of responding. You know, you're reacting to whatever's happening, whatever's information you're doing. And all while this is happening, time is getting away from you. And so I think the most unfortunate part of the moment is that it's like Jesus talks about building your house not on the sand. And he talks about all of these preparation things that you're supposed to do in case. So when something hits, you're ready for it. The best ready is relative, but you understand what I'm saying. And so I think that with what's happening where you see a digital divide or what any kind of divide, is because people weren't prepared and they weren't panicking. They were panicking now in the middle of the process, and then trying to pivot. While you're panicking, you can't even think of what you should do because you're just trying to survive. And nobody can really, when you're in survival mode, it's gritty. It's not innovative. It's not creative. It's not fresh. It's not, it's not in the right framework, and so I think that unfortunately all the trends that are happening and all the people that are prospering in the middle of this pandemic didn't spend a lot of time to mourn. They just got right in and was like, what do we do next? How do we shift? We refuse to go under. We refuse. Get the plexiglass out. Let's put it up. Let's hang it up. Let's change our business plan, change our business model, shift. They were ready to shift because they recognized that it shifted and you couldn't shift it back. And so after 21 days, 14 days into this, they just had a bigger perspective. And I think that's probably the saddest process of this divide. It's in everywhere. She spoke well to the digital divide and others. So just narrowing it down to there, you see that trickle down effect everywhere. And the trends are the same trends that has always been. Millionaires are made in any kind of crisis, and the poverty deepens, in any kind of crisis. That, like I said in when we were teaching in Bible study in February, when we did the stacking series, I said there's always currency in crisis. There's always currency in crisis. Money doesn't disappear. It just shifts. It shifts hands. It shifts resources. You don't make money. You tap into it. You just find out where it is. And so there's a lot of people that when this happened, they tapped into it. Clorox, they tapped into it. Amazon about to be a trillionaire, $1 trillion company, because they were already prepared for this model. eBay didn't go away. It shifted. It's like the people that believe it or not, Campbell's soup is blooming, because why? Everybody went to the store and bought canned goods. You know what I'm saying? So it's about trying to find what somebody needs, which is not a new trend. The millionaires are made from the people that solve problems, people that serve people that solve problems. Serving people and solving a problem is where the money is, and that's not a trend that's ever going to go away, and that's not a new trend, and that's just something that people have to tap into and stop being consumers and start to create. I'm sorry, that was a long answer.
No, but I do think that is part of where I see trends. With Black, we're so connected to we're so connected to the recipe, right? Versus on solving the problem. And you say, right, no, this is grandma's recipe. I made it with this. No, I can't move it over there. No, it can't live in Jewel, or it can't live in. No, I gotta sell it out of here. And I do believe that that's part of why we are left behind, because we're so concerned about the recipe and not really understand how does it solve the problem.
I love that recipe analogy. Have you ever heard that story about the ham and the pan?
No.
So a mother is teaching her daughter how to cut the ham. This is a ham that's get passed down. This is a recipe that gets passed down from generation. And she cuts the bottom off and puts it in the pan. Cuts the bottom off, puts it in the pan. This goes down to the next generation. I'm gonna make it fast. Gets to the next generation. One child says, "Why do we always cut the bottom off the ham? Why do we always cut it off?" She says, "You know what? I do not know. I never really asked my mom. I just saw that's the way she did it, so I did it." So then she called her mom. "Mom, why do we always cut the bottom off the pan?" She said, "Oh, girl, I just didn't have a bigger pan."
That's right. Yes, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. And so it's funny, you guys, I was talking to an architect this morning, and I was sharing with him, and he was sharing about restaurants and they're suffering this. And what I said is that I get it, but there was an opportunity where most restaurants wouldn't pick up a phone. They wouldn't use a phone. So right now, you need a phone. Many of them were not interested in delivery service. No, I'm good. We're doing okay. So there's a point where let's go into looking within, right? So as business owners, I believe that you should always be in your business, not on your business, in your business, learning the anatomy of your business and understand what works in the anatomy of your company. And so, yes, I'm a service business, and we have to understand that, but I need to know the operations. But I don't have to necessarily have control over it. I just need to see it. And so for a lot of businesses, they were not taking time to understand what the trends are, to understand, like, I need to take a class to understand this. And they don't want to pay professional services. So I'll do everything. I'll cook, I'll write my stories, I'll write my bio, I'll take my pictures, do everything. And so now you're here and it seems like it's hard, but it's a point. So I really want to talk about looking within. So first of all, if you're saying I'm tired of doing everything, that's number one.
Need a team.
You need a team.
That's
because
right.
If it's so you saying that, and so understanding that, and this is why I want to say, Christian entrepreneurship, it is bringing a team of God's people to push whatever product or service that you do. And so, but if you are operating in to me, that ain't real Christian life, because that means it's all about you. So understanding that now we have to look within. And so we have to look within to make sure that we are doing our business and we're doing it well. So one of the things that I do want to talk to you, Jocelyn, is that because you speak of what does it mean to be bold, an unapologetic Christian during these times. And so what does that look like? Because when I was telling him, he was like, well, we did this. And I said, well, hold up. You're not listening. Because you're saying, well, we used to do this. And I'm saying to him, like, well, we're not going back to the old. So let's just, like, it ain't going back. So what does that look like? And so what does being bold and unapologetic as a Christian look like today?
Good question. So one thing I'll start off with what it does not look like. It does not look like living in a fantasy, acting like we're not in the middle of a pandemic. I think sometimes people, do that and they're like just too holy and they're not looking at the reality. So let's not get that confused. I also don't believe that it's being bold and being an unapologetic Christian does not mean acknowledging how you feel, because at moments, I believe even the greatest leaders in the Bible felt fear. And there was a lot of fear bashing going on when this pandemic first came out. And fear is a natural response that our body has when we're at a place where we're at risk of being harmed. And with all the unknowns that we were experiencing at the very beginning of this pandemic, I feel like fear was a natural response and no one should be shamed by it. However, I do also believe that is acknowledging that despite what goes on, God is my strength and I will make it through this on the other side. It might look different. The other side might be different for everybody. And so we might lose some people along the way. But if I'm right in God, I believe that either way, I'm okay. So it's kind of working through acknowledging your feelings, acknowledging your emotions, not judging others in that space. And I keep repeating myself there because that's what I feel like a lot of Christians have done harm during this pandemic by shaming others, judging others on how they responded. That's not what we're about here, but it's acknowledging, putting our focus on God who gives us our strength and saying, hey, the only way we're going to make it through this is through God, not our own stuff that we're trying to figure out. So for me, that's what that means.
Nice. Pastor Jermone.
Yes. Same question?
Yes, same question.
I agree with, I don't really want to, I agree with everything that she said. I think that people try to segregate their spirituality from their life too much. It's like, just like we're made in the triune being, body, soul, and spirit. I think that your life is spiritual, your life is social, your life is secular, your life has all these dynamics connected to it. And I think that as believers, as Christians or entrepreneurs or just believers as a whole, that is all infused together. I agree with what she said, and should be lived and expressed in that way and not segregated so much.
And so we talk of, and I think it's segregation because I think it was something that we were
taught.
Yep, we were taught. And it was a behavior that we didn't know. So, Monday through Friday, we go to our jobs, on Sundays, we go to church. So we didn't share, hey, when you came to work on Monday, no one said, well, what was the word on Sunday in church? You just go on as business as usual. Right. So that's part of how we've segregated, because that was how we were raised. We were segregating based on this. And so what I'm hearing is that the blending, but then on the flip side, when I see our elected officials bring faith leaders, it's like, oh, so business, you bring them together. So it's amazing. All of our presidents have, a faith cabinet. And so we don't understand the importance of making sure that as business owners that we have a spiritual cabinet of people that we can go to and that can guide us in that way of, am I off or I'm not off? Or, how do I respond? How do I become proactive? And
it's so well said. I mean, what you just expressed again, it's like, let's go to the master and look at the model, right? So let's go to the master and look at the model. When he came to the earth, he's like, I got 3 years to change the world. Who will I choose? Did he go to the synagogue or did he go to the shore You know what I'm saying? He went to the shore, not to the synagogue. He went after business leaders. He went to fishermen, entrepreneurs. He went to a lawyer. A doctor. He went to a doctor in Luke. He went to a tax collector, Matthew. He pulled people that had transferable skills that were useful in secular society, and he brought them to a higher level of kingdom consciousness so that they could still remain their influence and their finances to be able to fund the mission, but yet and still not have to train them out of a church or a religious mindset. He did not waste his 3 years talking to the Sadducees and the Pharisees, and he was a person of the Spirit. He was a person that grew up in the temple. He didn't denounce that. He was just like, I can't change something with that. I can't change what is new. I can't change what is new with an old mindset. So business owners are already thinking about change. Business owners are already thinking about how society and what's shaping and what's next. So if I convert them into kingdom citizens, I have a better chance of advancing this cause than if I go try to first have to unchurch the church and then get the unchurched church to now function in society with the mentality of what God original idea is. Don't put me on this soapbox and get me going, because I will go on this.
Preaching. I was over here taking notes.
I'm just saying,
I told everybody that they need to bring their journals and take notes, because this was about taking notes. And it really is about, and I'm going to say looking within, because right now what you're sharing, Pastor, is on looking within. But if you are just outputting all day and never looking within, you can't get fed this level of spiritual food, because that's what you need to be able to be great in this world. And so we're operating in that place. And when you said it as being reactionary, so we're gonna, and so being able to pivot. And so pivot is the word everybody's talking about, right? And I'm gonna say this: I've been pivoting my business about 4 years. So to me, pivot is part of my culture, just for the record. So it's going to always be that way, because I don't ever want to be at a place where I am unable to pivot. And when I'm done pivoting, that means I'm off to be in paradise somewhere. Okay.
That's right.
So talking about it, Jocelyn, talking about this mask, right? So you certainly are, talking about the power of the mask and us carrying this mask. Now, right now, we all got to go to the grocery store and wear a mask, right? We got to put on one, whether we tie it, wrap it around our face, wrap it around our ears. But we are now, the new behavior is, when I walk outside of my life, I got to put on a mask. But for many people, they've been walking with an invisible mask that nobody knows. And as business owners, you're not sharing that you didn't have a P&L. So they're asking you for a profit and loss statement. And you're like, oh, I don't have that, because you're going out serving. You got a line outside the door for people to come in and get your food. And I'm just speaking of restaurants. It could be a professional service business. People are calling you. Every time you call, you so busy. So let's talk about the mask, the invisible mask. And to me, I don't know about y'all, but if you got the invisible mask and you got to put this mask, you can't breathe.
You can't breathe.
Can't breathe. Yep. And you over here struggling. Yes. I mean, so obviously I wrote the book before I knew this was going to be a fashion thing with the mask, but people have been wearing masks for, thanks, Loretta. She's the best hype woman. Get her marketing done, follow her services. But when it comes to this mask, we've been mastering that for years. When you think about social media, when you think about how people present and they're focused on getting followers and presenting this image and not being real about the fact, especially in business, that we're struggling to make payroll. We don't know how we're going to make it through the end of the month. We don't have our infrastructure set up. So if we got audited or sued, the business will be gone. All these small things, not small, major things, right, that we overlook because we're so focused on image. And so for my book, I was taking this from a standpoint of healing, how we in the church have been so trained up to say, I'm too blessed to be stressed, and we're here lying like we okay when we got some issues that are unresolved. But I blame the church as well for this, because we have not presented spaces where people feel safe to be authentic about what's really going on inside. So we come with the fear bashing, or like, if I'm dealing with depression, you don't have enough faith, or all these different things. So people have been taught, you know what, versus me being reprimanded for how I truly feel, I'm going to mask this, and I'm just going to try to to bury the pain, which is what the mask is metaphorically saying. You're hiding that pain and shoveling it away, not realizing that we're hurting ourselves, because at the end of the day, that stuff is still there. And one thing that I talk about is when you have a painful experience in your life, you think about a physical pain. If you have a bike accident and you fall off your bike and your leg is all bruised up and is open, you're not just going to say, oh, time heals all wounds, and I'm not going to go to the doctor. No, you're going to say, this is bad. I need to go and do something with this, because otherwise it can get infected. And that's what's happening with a lot of people right now. They have these open wounds that they never address. They just let it sit there and it's infected. So you got people who are bitter because they got unresolved pain. You got people who are over here hurting and numb because they've never dealt with their issues. And so I'm challenging us in all areas of our life, whether it's the business, whether it's a hurt healing issue that's going on. We need to remove the mask and find safe spaces to be authentic about our struggles, our pain, because the reality is all of us got some junk. All of us are hurting and dealing with stuff. But if we were honest enough, we could say, you know what, I don't have to deal with this by myself. Other people understand this. They've been there. They've done that. They can help guide the way. But we need to be at a place where we can have those conversations, and then we can help each other to move forward. But while we all wearing this mask, we're going to stay stuck.
That's good.
Yeah. And that's so good, because, and I'm going to say responsibility, and I'm going to ask this question, I'm a challenge. If you're rocking a mask, this invisible mask, and you got this and you run this business and you have not consulted with God on this, doesn't the business suffer? I mean, I'm just saying, like at some point, it has to be aligned. Like, and you're wondering like, oh, it's the people. Oh, it's this. Isn't this time to look within to say, you know, it's not the church's responsibility? I mean, I don't know. And I'm asking this because what ends up happening is, do we just go, you know, is it the culture to say, oh, just go get a new mask?
Right. Right.
Like, what is it?
Yeah.
And so, you know, understanding that as a responsibility, why aren't we, and I'm going to say this, pastors, why aren't we, and I'm not going to say forced, because I think that's hard, right? Why are we not urging us to be okay with hurting, right? Being okay with my business suffers. So what ends up happening is, I love you said, oh, I'm too blessed to be stressed. You know, I'm just highly favored. You know, all
needs.
No. I was raised in church. That's what we do. And so understanding that and really getting to the core of it, where is church been able to, you know, I know that's a lot, that's been years, that's 100 years of, I think there's some, untraining, unlearn that we have to do. But how can churches, and I speak to, Black churches, how can Black churches be able to be a force of creating that safe space that business didn't work out, I failed, right? Divorce, I failed, right? And it's okay. It's welcomed versus shamed.
Yeah, I'll say something really quickly, and then I'll let Pastor Jermone speak to this. I think is willing to have the conversation. There's certain things that pastors just don't talk about. And I realize maybe it's because they just don't feel comfortable talking about it or whatever the case may be. But I believe opening up the conversation about the struggles of being a Christian. I think sometimes church leaders, they're very, it's called prosperity, preaching. So they talk about like the blessings and all that that's coming. And I do believe there's space for that. But you also need to be able to talk about the real, like the struggles that we face, whether it's in business, whether it's in life in general, and say it's okay not to be okay, and also understanding that helping people to separate what has happened, your circumstances, from your identity of who you are in Christ. And a lot of people get that mixed up, where if their business failed, they associate that with them being a failure. And we have to help people to, separate those two things out and understand that sometimes that will happen. That might be a part of the process, but that does not mean that you're a failure or your next business will be a failure. But it's life, it's the journey. And so helping people to be able to process failure, pain, hurt in a healthy manner is important, but it first starts with us speaking to it.
That's so good. Yeah, I mean, failure isn't final. It's an opportunity. But it's a matter of perspective. Everybody don't see it like that. Failure can begin a whole new chapter, a whole nother season. It's not your mark. It's how you learn. It's how you grow. But everybody can't see it that way, And if you started something and it didn't succeed in the manner because you did the best of what you knew, or at that time, closing it down, shutting down, downsizing, resizing, reorganizing, recreating your infrastructure, learning new, skilling up. All these things are ways so that you can be able to grow and to mature. And so I don't know what most churches do. I know in Grand Rapids here, we create that space, always have. We have a culture of failing forward. We say if you fell forward, which means you tried something, you attempted something that let you be further along than you were when you began. So it's not finality. And we've also always, since the beginning of our history, always had pastoral counselors, licensed professional counselors. I am a pastor. I am not a counselor. I can give you biblical counsel. I cannot diagnose. I cannot treat you. I will not sit in 7, 12, 10, 50 sessions that you need to be able to help you walk through a process. But there are people you should go to, doctors, people that are trained, skilled, people that God uses in a small room, just like God uses me in a large room, right? Over a pulpit with a microphone. There's people that God will use sitting right on the couch and help you heal. And so we've always cultivated that in Michigan and in Chicago. New Life does the same. We have pastoral counselors and we have a counseling center, and we encourage people to go get healed in your soul. In my book, Soul Sessions, I talk about that. There's a lot to be said about your spirituality and little to be said about your soul. But soul is the part of you that remembers. Soul is where the pain is trapped. Soul is the part of you that if it's not healed, it keeps on attracting and reattracting and perpetuating whatever pain has been there. So when people don't heal in their soul and they just mask or cover up their soul wounds, then they mask that with spirituality. They mask that with, we're taught how to be spiritual. We're not taught how to be soulish and heal in our soulish realm. But David, when he was broken, he said, restore my soul. Right? Restore my soul, not just restore myself, restore my spirituality. Because again, as she said, that who you are, your identity. That's what I was reaching for. Your identity in Christ is separate from what you did, what your past. And when people marry both of them, then they put on the mask because they're trying to hide. They put on the mask in business, put on the mask in life, and God can't heal a place you won't acknowledge is already broken. Ooh. And at the end,
that when I say that, you guys just give me chills, because the reason why, so to your point, I did this is because we're not having enough conversations about the real and understanding that, we have to have these conversations. It's important. It is therapy to be able to do that. And so it's okay. So we do have a question of, why do people pretend they're not human?
Why do they pretend they're not human?
And let me say this. I think that's a leadership. If leadership treats you as if you're humans, that's where it comes from. That's the way I see it. If I treat my team as if they're not humans, then I have a problem. And I do think that it starts from leadership, but that's my piece on that.
I think that it's about vulnerability. I think it's not about people being human. I think people are afraid to be vulnerable. You know what I'm saying? I think that my wife and I talk about in our marriage, we talk about how you can become, that vulnerability is such a key to healing and bonding, but people are afraid to be vulnerable. And if you're afraid to be vulnerable, then you can't heal, you can't grow, you can't mature, you can't do anything. It's the vulnerability that increases, that deepens you or makes you, in that sense, more human. I don't think people are afraid to be human. They have no choice but to be human. I think they're afraid to be vulnerable. I think they're to share. They've told it, they said it. Somebody has used their weakness against them. The worst thing you can do is let somebody share your weakness and then they use it against you. But again, when you're not healing through every process and processing every pain, then what you do is you end up getting to a point where all this stuff gets built up, and then you now are carrying so much baggage from history when you could have just dealt with it when it happened and not let the trauma just, wreck your entire life and your future. The trauma did enough to your history. It doesn't have to keep destroying your future.
Yeah.
That's good.
I just wanted to add one small thing to that. It's a pressure to be strong. You always hear about the strong Black woman in my culture, but I think that goes across the lines. Is if you cry for men, you're not strong. If you're it's this connotation that we have to be a certain way, present ourselves in a certain way. So therefore, we're not being human and say, yeah, this hurt, I cry. So I think it's socially constructed as well.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, men have a struggle with showing vulnerability, especially to another man, because it's seen as a symbol of weakness, and to a woman because they don't want to later be looked at as less masculine than they really are. But it takes strength to cry. It takes strength to show emotion, and it takes strength to have an emotion and manage it and not let that emotion manage or control you. So. Yeah,
that's good. We've got about 5 minutes left, and I want to make sure that people, I want to make sure that people know how to find you all, connect with you all, what you got going on. I appreciate you all just being here to be part of this conversation and to make sure that minority business owners understand that. And I think I love this vulnerability. You should be able to be vulnerable with your team. You should be able to be that. And I think you guys hit it. It's okay. It's not okay to segregate. Like, you should be okay to blend this and intersect. So I think that's the one thing that you all were able to showcase, that it's okay to do that. Like, we don't have to be like, oh, well, did you go to church? Well, what was the service? You can say this at your job if you want to be vulnerable, if that's what you want to be. And if you want people to be able to see you as such, then that's important. So, Jocelyn, I want to make sure that people know where to connect to you. If you have anything going on that you'd like to share, community, go ahead and go for it.
Yeah, so as you can see on the screen, breakingthemask.com, that's where you can find out more information about my book. You can see a little promo there. And also I have a free workbook that you can download at that site. So go visit it. You can scoop up a copy of your book from there. And that'll also take you to my main website as well, that website. So you can learn about all the different things I'm doing. I have an online course where I help people to move forward and heal from the pain of their past, and a number of other resources. And I do work in retreats, speaking engagements, all around the issue of helping people to heal. Because this is something, especially with COVID-19, we've had complicated trauma from loss, from job to people dying. And so we need to create spaces in the faith community to address trauma and help people to move forward. And so I encourage you to visit breakingthemask.com or connect with me on Facebook at Connect with Jocelyn. I love to just hear from you and encourage you on your journey.
So I just want to plug one thing. So she gave me this book. I told her, I read books all the time. I read one book. And so she blessed me with this book. And she blessed me. She would let me pay for it. She said, no, I want to give it to you. And this thing changed me. So thank you for giving me this book to give me an opportunity to know you in such a special way. So thank you for that. And this book is it's an easy read. And when I say easy read, it's an easy read from that, but it's a hard thing to really reflect. So I want to be curious to make sure I say that. It's an easy read as far as going here, but it's a hard one to be able to really dissect some of those things that we have been, kind of trained. So I just want to plug that. Jermone, I want to make sure people know you and can connect with you with all the amazing things that you do, obviously with our church, and then just all over. You're just amazing. And I have also read those sessions online. So let me make sure I plug that.
Thank you.
So if you can share that with the community.
Yes, thank you. And much success to you, Jocelyn, and all that you do. Thank you so much, Lavetta. I think that I am all things on JermoneGlenn.com, all my social media platforms, my website is all connected. I'm just about advancing and helping people find and discover their purpose, and innovating along the way. Soul Sessions is something that we found to be a very important book because it didn't matter what you put on if what was inside wasn't healed and wasn't whole. You would keep attracting what at the core you were. So it's like taking yourself to therapy. So it's on Amazon. We suspended all sending out books during the crisis and just let Amazon be our book distribution. But I have over 10 books that are on Amazon. If you put my name in, all of them will pop up. Some that I think I might recommend in the context of this is Unlock Your Genius, and maybe
I was gonna okay, yeah, okay, good.
Unlock Your Genius and Unlock Your Dreams. These your dreams are trapped inside of a dungeon. They're trapped. The dungeon is called your mind. You know what I'm saying? And it's like we need to live inside of your dreams. We are currently living inside of your dream right now. So thank you for bringing us on here. And we would not have this conversation if you'd have let that dream die in your head. And so I don't want people to underestimate or circumvent the process of thinking that they don't have everything or can't do it or it's too much. The little bit of effort goes a long way, be it the people that are watching live right now or the people that'll see it later. They all have dreams, and God wants to get those dreams out so we can live inside your dreams. Everybody is living inside of somebody's dream. The question is, who's living inside of yours, right? Mm-hmm. And so this one is called Unlock Your Genius because everybody has genius in your genes. We're made in the image and the likeness of God. And so in our DNA, in the very core of who we are, is God DNA in our bones, right? And so I know that a lot of people say we come from a lot of things, but one thing I believe we come from for sure is we come from God. We come from God. God is in us. He's breathing in us. He's functioning in us. And when you engage the God side of your identity, you unlock the genius that's inside of you. So everybody's a genius, just not about everything. Right. And so you got to find your genius. And when you find your genius, unlock it and master it. So somebody pays you for that. And so if we can do that and stop becoming consumers, but becoming creators and producers, progenitors even of whatever it is that God has put for us, then everybody is better as a result of it. So there's many books. All of them will empower you in some type of way, heal you in some type of way. And then, of course, my wife and I are having such a joy on Monday nights right now. We are gathering together for Marriage Monday every single Monday. We're on all platforms and we're talking all things relationships. It is for married people, but we have some.
But I have been on there, just for the record. I'm not married, but I've been on there because you all get some gems.
I was just getting ready to say it is for married people, but so many single people log on. They waited for Single Saturday and we gonna figure it out. But they logging on and we love that and appreciate that because we heal the next situation we love single people that tap into marriage conversations because there are no bad marriages. They're just people who shouldn't have got married that got married and they created a bad marriage. Marriage is God's idea. There are no bad marriages. But if you don't heal right, if you don't choose right, if you don't plan right, if you don't learn right before you get married, then you bring that into a marriage. And that's what creates a bad marriage. That's why people get divorced and still want to be married. Because if marriage itself was the thing that was so horrible, then when people got divorced, they wouldn't want to get married. But they get divorced and they say, oh, it didn't work with you, but it can work with somebody else. That's because they're saying that I brought bad ingredients to the relationship and I want to take it to the next relationship. So when we see all the single people chiming in on Marriage Monday, we love it because it's like, if we give you good ingredients, you'll take that to another person and that person come together and you'll have healthy marriages. Because if we're going to build and restore the culture, and particularly kingdom culture and also black culture, black and brown people, we got to begin with the family. I think if there's any silver lining in the pandemic was that God says, shut the door, go in the house and focus on what's ever living under your roof, right? And pay attention to that. If you're by yourself, pay attention to that. If you're with somebody, pay attention to that. And so everything out of society that God originally deemed necessary was originally supposed to be birthed out of the home, not out of the church. People were supposed to become the church, migrate into a building, a called out group of people, and become the church. But the power was in the priests of the home, the family, the mother, the father, the single individual that's in a whole space, that is a whole person connecting with another whole person that creates a whole marriage.
I'm going to get you back on that because, that's my passion over there, but we're going to talk about that. I want to thank my guests this afternoon for another installment of Crisis Currency Conversations. I love y'all. Again, I hope that you all will subscribe on YouTube.
Subscribe.
Thank you. Subscribe to Larvetta Lofton. We're going to keep bringing this every Friday until God tell me I don't have to do this no more. But I will continue to serve you. Please share this with other business owners. I think we will continue to keep this dialogue of vulnerability, even as business owners. I appreciate those that were able to join us live. We thank you for joining us. We thank our guests for being here. And I just want to say this: have a wonderful and safe Memorial Day weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay present in this time of crisis. I love y'all, and we made it out of here in an hour. So thank you all for that. All right. See you guys.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Larvetta. All right. Nice to meet you.
Same here.